Welcome back to Box of Delights. You ready to play some War of the Ring card game? Let's play solo, and we're playing against the Shadow. And if you've not seen my last video, I wanted to play a scenario from the upcoming expansion, Fire and Swords. So we're going to be playing the expanded trilogy scenario. To give you a little demo of how the solo game works. We've got the base game, we've got Against the Shadow, and Fire and Swords. I'm going to be playing as free peoples. That's always the case when you're playing solo. You can't play as a shadow. When we're playing against the shadow. Now I have cut and made some tokens here just to remind me of which deck is which. I just took the turn order card, made a copy and cut these out. So we've got the Frodo player, we've got Gandalf, we've got Aragorn here. And then for the shadow, we've got three decks. We've got the Witch King, we've got Saruman, and we have Bill Ferny. So yes, playing solo, you do have to manage all of these decks yourself, rather than cooperatively with two other teammates. I also wanted to add, there is in the base game a two-player duel where you could just play one deck each, but with all 90 cards mixed in for your deck, that's one big deck. And the designers have said, because I did ask, it kind of dilutes your deck so much that it becomes a little bit unplayable, which is fair enough. So if you're using all three expansions, do bear that in mind. Now, as I said in my last video, there is another scenario, War in the North, in Fire and Swords, which will only use two decks. And there is also another two-player, and it's called Epic Duel, where you only use one deck, but it is a longer game. They say it takes twice the amount of time of a normal trilogy. And the reason why is that you're using twice as many paths. So in an Epic Duel, instead of just going from 1 to 9, each path number appears twice. So you'll go 1, 1, then 2, 2, then 3, 3. So rather than 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 9, you'll go 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3. All right, so you play each path twice. Okay. All right, I think that's it. I think we're ready to go. So we've got our turn order tracker here. Frodo starts as first player, then we'll go clockwise around here. Make sure we give our decks a good old shuffle up. And as in the base game trilogy, we're going to have each player draw 7 cards, cycle 2. And yeah, it is quite a bit to manage, to be fair. But if you're into Lord of the Rings and you're playing solo and you've got lots of time, just take your time with it and you'll be having lots of fun. I should also note the expansion Fire and Swords will come with an extra ring. We've only got 2 free people's ones, so I'm using a spare shadow as the third ring. The shadow player in solo doesn't have any rings, so that's fine. We can just use these as generic rings for free peoples. But the good thing about playing with 3 decks like this is they are themed, all right? So you'll only see certain cards. There's a promo come up already. You'll only see certain cards appearing. Right, so first we have to cycle 2. Got Frodo and Pippin, that's a good start. That's probably as much as we're going to need. Right, we'll cycle these 2. Right, for Gandalf, Wizards and Elves, a little bit more considered. So we've got Radagast here, and another promo, Goldberry. Cycle these 2. Okay, and then for Aragorn, got an event here. Who knows? Right, we'll cycle those 2. I never said I was good at this game. Okay, right, so we've made our choices. Same for Shadow, but this time we don't get to see their deck, okay? see their cards. We're just going to stick 2 in the cycle and put 5 in their hands. I might put the hands up at the back here. Okay, we're going to start with Frodo here as first player. All right, good stuff. And we'll just use this token to signify who's first player each time. Okay. Beautiful. Right, first step is we need a location, battleground, and path. So we start with battlegrounds. Give these a shuffle up. So Free Peoples are going first, so we have a Free Peoples battleground. And it is Dol Amroth. It says the Dunedain player may forsake 1 card to draw 1 card. Well, typically at the beginning of the game we don't want to do that, because forsaking cards means it's gone. No, we don't want to do that. You don't have to do that. There we go. Right now, path. Now, just because this card back is slightly different and it's hard for me to pull out one randomly, I'm going to select one with a die roll. And a 4-sided die will do the trick. We'll say 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. Okay, there we go. So it could have been Bag End, Bucklebury Ferry, or a long-expected party, but we have Gildor's Encampment. Gildor was an elf passing by the Shire as Frodo and his companions set out on their adventure. Gildor was familiar with Bilbo and recognised Frodo, though he'd never met him before, and invited Frodo and his companions to join them at their camp. And it says the elf player, which is Gandalf, the one in the middle here, the elf player draws 1 card and then cycles 1 card. Okay, so we draw a card, and we've drawn Arwen, and then we cycle 1 card, so it could be any card here. Well, I know they've got Strider, so Arwen's pretty good actually. There's a lot of game here, so there's no rush. Maybe I will cycle... Well, I'm not going to play all of these. Let's cycle Radagast. Yeah, let's cycle Radagast. We'll keep Arwen. Alright. Action step next. And again, Frodo's go first. So maybe we will follow the plot and have Frodo or Pippin. We don't have Sam, but it would have been Frodo, Pippin, or Sam. Go to Gildor's Encampment. Maybe that's the thing to do. It's path number 1. These cards can only be played, well, they can be played at any path, paths 1 to 9. Some are limited to which paths they could join. So I might just, to play a card you need to cycle, so let's cycle Bury Garn. And we play Frodo or Pippin. The idea here really is to bump up the shields at this path, forcing Shadow to come and try to attack it. And I'm not really worried about winning this path. I wonder actually if there's another option here. What if I played... Yeah, we'll cycle that. What if I played Dine instead? And played him into our reserves. And it says, when played, take a random card from your cycle pile into my hand. We get Éowyn back. Right, that might actually work better. Maybe I should have kept Éowyn anyway. Yeah, Éowyn might be better. Alright, we'll play Dine into our reserves. And let's just wait and see what Shadow does before we start putting anything down on paths and so on. Okay, that's Frodo team's done. Let's move to the Witch King. For the automated player, for the Shadow bot player, there's a flowchart. And it drives them along But basically, at the start of the game, there's nothing in play. All they're going to do is go down. Red is no, green is yes. Can they do this? Can they do this? They can't do anything at the beginning other than play a random card from the bot hands. So they draw a random card. Now, you don't really need to shuffle these up because we drew them randomly. So just take a random card. This is the card they're going to play. And it is the Black Captain. The logic is, if it's an item, attach it somewhere. It's not an item, it's an event. If it were a character, you'll be looking to play it on the path. If it was an army, you'd be looking to play it on the battleground. If that would change the state of who's winning or losing. So at the beginning, the defender gets the advantage because it's got shields on. So Guilders Encampment comes with one shield. So inherently, the defender's winning. For the attacker to beat this, they'll need to play 2 attacking combat icons, which would be skulls in this case, actually. Okay, for the battleground, for armies, they've got 2 shields here. They would need to play 3 attacking icons, crossed swords. In terms of background. So for the moment, they don't have enough. All right. Once they've collected 3 or more attacking icons, they can go into the battleground. 2 or more, they can go into the path. Collected those in the reserve. So they're going to keep playing cards into their reserves, characters and armies, until they've got enough attacking icons to win these. Otherwise, the defender's currently winning. So at the moment, we're winning the path, we're winning the battleground. Super. Remember, we're trying to collect victory points. All right. This is worth 1 victory point. This is worth 1 victory point to the defender. Now, events, though, it doesn't say on the flowchart, but an event is just an event. When they play an event, they just carry out the text here. And it says, for the Black Captain, activate Minas Tirith. Can we activate Minas Tirith? Well, yes, we can. If we were playing a scenario where Minas Tirith is not present, or if it's out of the game for some reason, we would just cycle. But as it goes, the Black Captain is going to activate Minas Tirith. You can have more than one battleground in play at a time. So things have gotten complicated. Let's see, Minas Tirith is here. It's a Free People's battleground. So now we've got 2 here. All right. You can only ever have one path. You can have 1 or more battlegrounds. If you activate a path, then this one would get resolved and then a new path comes in. But for battlegrounds, activate it, it just sits here. If we'd already won Minas Tirith, if this had come up and we'd already beaten it, it's worth 3 victory points. It can actually come back. Right, so we could lose it again and it gets refought after. It's like a counter-attack, if you like. Okay, so we thought we'd won it, but we hadn't. We've got to still defend it. All right, now we've got a dual attack coming on. So the Shadow player was attacking Dal Amroth. Now they've decided to attack both. Events, once they're played, we just put them out of play in an elimination pile. And typically you place your elimination pile over to the side of your deck, but just to save space, I'm actually going to put these up out of play at the top here. And that's it. Their turn is concluded. Now it's Gandalf's turn. So, Gandalf, what are you going to do? Now it's always good, I think it's always good, it's generally good to pass if you can. Now we can't pass until we've got less cards in our hand than each of our opponents. So at the moment, the Witch King has got 4 cards. Saruman and Bill have got 5, we've got 5, so we can't pass just yet. We can also pass if we're at our carryover limit. Carryover limit's 2, so if we've got 2 or less cards, we can always pass. Right? But as it goes, I want to play Arwen. I want to play Arwen to the reserve. And then we'll have Aragorn play Strider. I think that's the idea. Strider, they can always go to a battleground because he's got the shield and attack icon here. Galadriel's always good because while she's in reserve, we get to draw an additional card. Maybe I need to play Arwen and Galadriel and save the Lembas. Maybe that's the thing. But the thing about Galadriel is I'll play her to my reserve. So why don't we do this? Why don't we cycle Goldberry and play Galadriel to the reserves? And it says when play, draw a card. And this might give us something else and give us another option. We got the Ent Quick Beam. Yeah, he's certainly a good card, but maybe not yet. Right, that's Gandalf's turn. Next up is Saruman. So Saruman, there's nothing they can do other than play a card from their hand. Oh wow, it's the Balrog. It can't go to the path because it only goes to pass 4 and 5. Can it go to a battleground? These icons here show you which cards can be played to a battleground. This is a monstrous card. Dal Amroth only wants Southrons, minus Tirith, Southrons, or Mordor cards. So Balrog can't go here. So this one's going to the reserve. So not much happening here. The Shadow player doesn't need to cycle cards to play cards. So this is just the Shadow building up the reserves. And every time they reveal a card like this and stick it in their reserves, it's just giving us information. One thing you'll find is Shadow will build a big reserve of cards that we know they can play. And one of our objectives really is to kind of keep an eye on that reserve and make sure that we're manipulating them if we can in some way. All right, next is the Aragorn player. Okay, so can we get Strider out? I think that was our thinking, wasn't it? Yeah, so Strider can come out. Pass of the Dead is an event that says forsake 2 cards, then draw 4 cards or 5 if Strider's in reserve. So we could put Strider in reserve. The thing is, minus Tirith is worth fighting for. And if I put Strider in my reserve, I can't then play him to a battleground, okay? Because you can't play a card to your reserve and then play it from the reserve in the same turn. I'd really like to pass at this point, but I can't. So what I might do, I could put Grimborn out in preparation for later in the game. Maybe we'll cycle this event and put Grimborn in our reserves. That seems kind of sensible. Biltani next. Okay. Random card. Let's see what they do. It is a Southron army. Right, so they can come in here, but they've got 1 attack. This one's got 2 shields, this one's got 3 shields. Now obviously the Balrog could help contribute, but it can't go to these battlegrounds. We already know that. So at the moment it couldn't conceivably win, right? This card is not, together with any other cards in the reserve, is not enough to win any of these. So it's just going to go to the reserve. So it's just going to keep building up its reserve until it's got enough swords to take one of these battlegrounds. Make sense? Okay. So no is the answer right now. So there we go, up in the reserve here for Biltani. Now what's also interesting is it does have an ability. It says if in reserve, use an action to activate minus Tirith if it's in the Free Pools background deck, and then move this card to minus Tirith. Interesting. If it's in the Free People's battleground deck, it's not. It's already out here. So that action's not going to happen. All right, so we can ignore that text. We know that that's going to be ignored. So if that event hadn't pulled it out, Hadrim Cavalry would, and it would have activated from their reserve next time they got a turn. Well, that's kind of cool. All right, and there we go. We've done 1 cycle of the table. It's back to Frodo to take their action now. I kind of know what I'm going to do here. We're going to play Eowyn. She has an effect when played to a battleground. You may choose a Nazgul on that battleground and eliminate it. So there aren't any Nazgul in play yet, certainly not at battlegrounds. But what I'm going to do is just play out of my reserve. We cycle a card. I'm going to cycle Pippin. Then it says, when played to reserve, you may take Merry or Pippin from your cycle back into your hand. So, back into my hand. This was really a stalling play, really. I mean, okay, Eowyn's not going to come out this turn, but our reserves are mounting up. Right, that's Frodo done. It's now the turn of the Witch King. Let's draw them a card. And they get the Lidless Eye. Oh, a nice character. It says this card cannot be played or moved to a path if the Shadow Battlegrounds is active. They're not. It's both free peoples. When played, each Shadow player draws one card. It won't be played to the path. It can only be played on path 9. That makes sense. This Lidless Eye is going to be seen at the final. So it's kind of nice that this has come out now. It doesn't have any attacking icons. So this is going straight into the reserve. It's going to sit there until path 9. But it has been played. When played, each Shadow player draws one card. Right, so draw a card, draw a card, draw a card. We don't like that because that's just going to strengthen them. They're going to be bringing more cards out, more cards into their reserve. We don't like stuff like that. Okay, Gandalf's turn. Okay, Gandalf. What are you going to do? You want to get Arwen out, right? So I think we're going to cycle the Elven Cloak. Or maybe we cycle Quickbeam. Yeah, let's do that. Let's cycle Quickbeam. We don't need him yet. And let's play Arwen to the reserve. We're down to 2 cards, so Gandalf can pass now if they want to. And the good thing about this game is that once you pass, that's not the end. You can come back in if another player does take a turn. Passing is your little saving grace in the solo game against the Shadow, because you know you can always pass and get another play. Alright, so when played, draw a card. And we've drawn Celeborn. Okay, so now we're back up to 3 cards. We can't pass again, but the Shadows have all just drawn, so we've got fewer cards than they do, so we're actually good. We can pass with just 3 cards. Alright, Gandalf's done. Arwen's in play. The reserves are looking good. Saruman's turn. So they're going to draw a card. Again, you don't really need to shuffle. It depends how you feel about these things. Remember, this can't come out to the battleground just yet. So Balrog's sitting there waiting for the right kind of location that accepts monstrous creatures. Let's draw their card. They're going to play the Orc Chieftain. Again, another monstrous card. So we know it can't be played because it's monstrous. It's only played to pass 4 or 5. It's going into the reserve, but it has a when played effect, draw 1 card. Okay, so Saruman gets another card. Now, a little tip here, to save space, you're really looking for the faction icon up here, the path number down here, and then whether it's got attack on battlegrounds, attack on path icons. That's really all you need. There might be some effect on here which might fire that makes them useful. Now my tip here is when you have a card with an effect on it, tag it in some way with a token. So what I tend to do is if the Balrog had an action here, for example, that could be useful at any moment, I put a token on like this. And then that tells me that there's something to be aware of. And again, it's just a way of saving space and keeping awareness, making the solo game easier to manage when you've got 6 decks, 6 hands to kind of manage. Make sense? All right, as it goes, there's not an effect right now. So Aragorn is next. And do you know what? I think I forgot this effect. Grimborn the Old. When played, each Shadow player must forsake 1 card. Oh. Did I forget that? I think I must have forgotten that. Should we catch that up before we push forward? Yeah, absolutely. Right, that was a mistake. Well, it's kind of inconsequential. When Shadow player forsakes, it's not like us. Forsake for us is hard. We have to eliminate a card from our hand, from our reserves, from the top of the deck. But the Shadow player, they will just cycle the rightmost card from their reserve. If their reserve's empty, they'll cycle a card from their hand. So now where were we? That got played out, that got played out. That got played out. So actually, playing Grimborn the Old when I didn't have much effect other than to cycle the Balrog. If they didn't have any cards in their reserve, then instead they cycle a random card from their hand. So let's just do that for these two. And if their hands were empty, only then do they eliminate, and they eliminate the top card from their draw deck. So Grimborn the Old, yeah, I missed that. Why did I miss that? I don't know. There we go. Well, that was a good effect, but all it did was gotten rid of the Balrog. So the timing on Grimborn is important because we could have potentially gotten rid of a couple more cards from their reserve. But I'm okay with that. I'm actually okay with that. I like reducing their hands. But at least we've gotten rid of the Balrog for now. But yeah, I probably could have been smarter in when I played Grimborn. Yeah. Bizarre. Don't know how I missed that, but there you go. This is the thing about this game. When you're trying to manage so many, it is easy to forget things. And that's why I say use tokens, use any little shortcuts you can to help you. All right, well, I want to get Strider down, don't I? Or can I pass? I don't think I can pass now because, yeah. The Witch King's only got 3 cards in their hand, and I've got 3 cards in my hand. So I can't pass yet. All right, let's put Strider down in the reserve. That'll do. We're kind of setting ourselves up for an upcoming turn, aren't we? Yeah. Okay. Bill Ferny's turn. So take a card. So we've got a Ruffian. Ruffians can't be played here, but it can be played to a path. But that will only equal things up. So this would still go to the defender. Defender wins ties. So he's not going to play it there yet. He's going to wait for a few more reserves yet. But yeah, it can be played to paths 1 to 3. So the spies say he's going to play them to reserve. If in the reserve, use an action, eliminate this card, and each Free People's player must forsake 1 card. Oh dear. Right, this is not great. So yeah, this time I'm going to put a token on here because when it gets back round to them, they are going to use their spies. And this is where Grimborn would have been useful now, because we could have made them forsake the spies. Yep. So timing of Grimborn was wrong. I should have put Strider in. Then I could play Grimborn. Yeah. Oh, but there you go. Lesson learned. Lesson learned. There's lots of depth to this game, as you can see. All right, let's back round to Frodo. The problem for Frodo and all Free Peoples now is this forsaking a card problem. We've got our hands where we want, and when we can forsake a card from the top of our deck, but that could be something really good. It's terrible. Spies are a real threat, and I don't think there's anything we can do about this. Frodo says if eliminated for any reason, cycle. So we could forsake Frodo. We do lose him. Yeah, this is a problem. What do we do? I think I'm going to cycle Éomer and play Pippin. And we can play him to a Dunedain Battleground or to paths 1 to 9. So we could play him to either of these. These have both got the Dunedain icon, so he can be played here or to the path. Pippin can add defense to these battlegrounds, but you'll note this shield is in a circle. This is the leadership defense. You'll find icons like the swords, like here on Galadriel, swords in a circle. It's the same kind of thing. This is a leadership attack, this is a leadership defense. What that means is the attack and defense don't count unless there's an army of the same faction on the battleground. So for Galadriel, that means an elven army. For Pippin, though, it means a Dunedain army. Okay, that's what the effect says. So unless we intend to put a Dunedain army in play, and we don't have any armies, these are characters. An army would have army written here. Everything's characters right now. Then Pippin's not really doing anything, but we can put him here on the path and entice some shadow characters onto this encampment down this path. Maybe. They don't have any, well, they've got the Orc Chieftain. No, that's paths 4 to 5. Yeah, they don't have anything. So at the moment, we haven't got much of an insight. This is proving tough. I'm not seeing enough of their reserves to know whether this is a good play or not. But we don't necessarily lose Pippin. If they don't attack this path, any leftover defenders here just get cycled. Okay, all attackers to paths or battlegrounds will always get eliminated. But defenders, they only get eliminated if we have to use their shields for any reason, right? So if there's so much attack here, we have to use shields to cancel those attacks. Then they get eliminated. Leftover defenders will get cycled. Pippin's now doing his thing. Either way, he's going to get cycled because he has an ability here. It says, if eliminated in path, cycle instead. So Pippin is kind of safe. He's going to go back to my cycle pile. Remember, this is like a discard pile. If our deck runs out, the cycled cards come back. Eliminated cards, they're gone. But cycled cards, they will come back to my deck. Witch King next. Right, they're going to draw. And they've got a Mordor character. The Black Easterling is a Nazgul. It offers +1 defense on Dol Guldur, which is not in play. When played, draw a card. All right. Let's see now. So it can come out. This Nazgul will come to paths 1 to 3 or 5 to 9. It's got 1 skull. That's not enough. At the moment, Gilda's encampment has 2 shields. 2 versus 1 is not enough, so this card is going to the reserves. What's interesting is, if I hadn't played Pippin here, it would have come to this path, because we've got spies, giving 1 skull on paths 1 to 3. That would have been enough to equalise this or neutralise this defence. Then the Black Easterling coming to this path would have been enough to allow the shadow to conceivably win. Right? That's the term it uses, conceivably win. So it would play to the path if a shadow could conceivably win, but is currently losing. So it's currently losing. It could conceivably win because this could come here and this could come here. But Pippin is preventing that. So he's going back here. Now remember, in terms of priority orders, it wouldn't have actually made a difference in terms of spies, because if this comes here, when it gets to Biltani's turn and the spies, you could say, well, do they move here or do they use their action? Use an action comes first before moving a card. So they wouldn't have moved their spies in, they would still use the action anyway. So yeah, we haven't really blundered in a sense. Pippin couldn't prevent the spies from firing, but they have prevented the Black Easterlings from heading here just yet. The Orc Chieftain can't contribute because it can only be played to pass 4 and 5. It does say when played, draw a card, so they are going to draw a card. Gandalf's turn. So Gandalf, you've got the threat of the spies hanging over us. What are you going to do? Gandalf still can't pass because Witch King has just 3 cards. Biltani has just 3 cards. Yeah, so we can't pass yet. I think we're going to play the Elven Cloak onto Galadriel and cycle Celeborn. Yeah, I think that's what we'll do. If you're wondering what these asterisks do, these star symbols, it just means its attack value and defense value here is dependent on something that's going on in the text. So it's asking you to go and check the text effectively. So here it's got +1 on Dol Guldur, +1 attack, +1 defense on Lorien. Okay, so that's what these stars mean. All right, let's cycle this, and we'll attach the Elven Cloak to Galadriel. Yeah. She's got an extra defense on paths. So I'm feeling happy about future paths. Less happy about those spies. Okay. Saruman. I can quickly glance at Saruman and I know there's nothing going on here, right? There's no tokens, no red tokens here. So I know he's going to be looking at his hand, playing a card out of his hands. Now Saruman's got quite a few cards actually, 5 cards still in their hand. And it is an army, a monstrous army, so lots of monstrous stuff. So we know monstrous armies can't come out to these battlegrounds, so it's going to the reserve. It's the goblins of the Misty Mountains. It says if this card is eliminated for any reason, cycle it instead. So yeah, these goblins are pretty resilient. Hard to get rid of these guys. Aragon. The interesting thing about this solo mode, you'll notice that the shadow players' turns are really quick, right? They just whip on by. Unlike our turns, which are pretty slow. We've got 1 card left. We can pass. We can't play this event because we haven't got any cards to cycle, but you can play the last card from your hand. It just means you have to forsake a card. So that means the card from your reserve, top card of your deck, gets eliminated, and then you can play the last card of your hand. So remember, every card you play has a cycle 1 card cost. But I can just pass, which is not great, because spies are going to come next. Because it's Bill Turney's turn. Can they use an action? Yeah, this red token says they can, so get rid of this. Let's read the text. It says, if in reserve, it is, use an action, eliminate this card, and each Free People's player must forsake 1 card. So spies is gone. So that means a card from our hand, a card from our reserve, or from the top of the deck. The bad news is we can't check this card to see what it is before we make our decision. So we could cycle Frodo and just stick him in here. That's one option. But I really want Frodo. I mean, Frodo could save a card from getting eliminated. So do we cycle Frodo? I mean, we could sacrifice something like Éowyn. Éowyn can eliminate a Nazgul character, so she is good. Oh boy, I don't know what this is. I feel like I'm going to sacrifice Éowyn. She's going to take 1 for the team. Oh, I don't know. It's really hard because she is strong. Nah, let's get rid of her. We'll keep her. Let's get rid of this card. Right, now that we've made our decision, so we're going to keep Frodo. We're going to keep Éowyn. We're going to get rid of this. It could be something great, but let's see what it is. Now you can look. And it was a Dwarven Axe. Right, it was good. Doan would have loved that. Yep. So Doan has laid down his historic axe for the cause. Fair play. Fair play. Again, to save space, I'm just going to stick eliminated cards underneath like so. Alright. Gandalf, what are you going to do? We could forsake the Lembas, which is great for getting rid of corruption. I don't want to get rid of Arwen or Galadriel. We're going to forsake, I eliminate the top card of our deck. This is bad because it could be something great. It could be like Gandalf. But what are the odds? I don't know, let's see. It is the Phial of Galadriel. Wow. Frodo, you've lost your Phial of Galadriel. Yeah, let's a good look at the artwork here. There's Shelob in the background. Yep, could have been useful. Ah, too late. Those spies. Spies are terrible. Okay, lastly then, do we keep Paths of the Dead? What do we do? What would you do? I want to keep both of these. We have to get rid of 3 cards to play this and then draw 4, 5. I don't know. I feel like it's a good card to sacrifice. I think it's not bad as a it's not bad a price to pay. It's a good card, especially if we pull a load of stuff we can't use. But I'm going to let it go. All right, that was Bill Turney's turn. Back to Frodo. Frodo's going to pass. Got 1 card in our hand, which is Frodo. So yeah, we can pass. See what happens. Witch King next. They still have lots of cards to play. They can play this to minus Tirith, but with 3 defense, it's ineffectual. Right, let's see what's happening. Oh, the Witch King himself. Wow. Does this change things? It certainly does change things. He's got 2 skulls. He's got 2 corruption. What that means is he's going to come in. He's sensed the hobbits at this elven encampment. With 2 skulls, that's enough to equalise the 2 shields. So that alone wouldn't bring the Witch King here, but with the Black Easterling, with his Nazgul, which can also be played to this path, that would be 3. So they can conceivably win. The Witch King has been enticed out of Middle-earth into the outskirts of the Shire in search of Frodo and the Ring, and poor Pippin looks like a potential victim. So as it stands right now, 2 skulls, that's 2 corruption versus 2 shields, plus this Nazgul. Okay, that's what brings him here. That Nazgul's coming next. But this is okay. This is what we're doing. We're using our hobbits to entice these Nazgul out early game, because they will get eliminated. Now that this Witch King's attacking, it will get eliminated unless another effect saves it. All right, Gandalf, what are you going to do? And I think to answer that question, we're going to wait until next time. So hopefully you've gotten a good overview of how this game plays in the solo. It's going to be a long game, but you take your time, you let the story unfold. And obviously with this expanded trilogy, it will take a little longer. You've got 6 hands to manage instead of 4 hands, or indeed 2 hands. 9 paths to get through, but enjoy it. Enjoy the artwork, enjoy the story, enjoy the time you can spend with this game.